can't see is what's up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure how these were going to work. I kind of assumed they'd be individualized.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they can be in the future. I don't know. It seems they're synced up with the TVs.
Fox, you're supposed to know everything.
I don't. You can choose which one.
We hire people for that.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's City Council workshop. Our meeting will follow at 10 a.m. We have a couple of presentations today during the workshop hour, and then we are going to try to get through a couple of executive session items because we do have 5 items today. But I would ask if you would please silence your cell phones, and we will get started with our workshop agenda. And first, we will have our legislative update summary from 2024, and we have Denny and Associates, Lee Fry and Tony Denny are here with us. So Tony, why don't you come give us our summary for what took place last session.
All right, good morning, Mayor, members of council. Good to be here this morning to do a review, look back at the legislative session that we just completed, talk about some accomplishments and kind of maybe what the future looks like. Let's see here now. I've got the clicker here, right? So I'm going to go right arrow, correct? All right, so I'm going to follow with my notes here. So I think the focus this morning, council, is going to be mostly on the work we did around appropriations in the 24-25 fiscal budget and the funding we're able to secure, and the work that went on around that is ongoing to support the downtown revitalization work. Not as much on the standalone legislation, although we've got some items there to update you on that are of interest to Myrtle Beach. Second year of a 2-year session, so you're already past halftime. Legislative process tends to be front-loaded, so not a lot of new issues on the legislative side are going to really take flight and get adopted in the second half of the session. But the budget was kind of the critical piece. So let's start with that. So kick this off here. Just a little overview for the 24 session that we concluded in June. 1,617 bills introduced. Of all those bills ratified and sent to the governor, a good many of those are ceremonial, naming things. We'll talk a little bit about some of the bills of substance, but limited number there. All right, so let's touch base first off on the state budget, and happy to take any questions as we go through the different sections and different topics. Feel free to interrupt as you please. So a little overview from the 23 budget a year ago. $5 million in non-recurring funding for downtown revitalization, and then $1 million is in the budget recurring funding for ocean outfalls. That's been a continuing item the last 2 or 3 years. The ocean outfall money is in the base budget. So provided we're not cutting budgets, that stays in there. So for 24, again, that $1 million is in there for ocean outfalls, separate from the non-recurring appropriation Fox 2 or 3 years ago for $30 million dedicated to outfalls. So now on the downtown revitalization money, so for 23, $5 million. For 24, we secured $10 million in non-recurring funding for downtown revitalization. Now, I think looking back at the overall budget for this year, for this fiscal year, that $10 million is towards the top. If you look at the projects that went on for support for downtown efforts, county, city projects, recreation, tourism, you name it, $10 million certainly towards around the top of that list. So that's certainly a good measure of success, because we want to be making certain that the General Assembly recognizes the critical importance that Myrtle Beach tourism brings to the entire state. And I think we saw that with the $10 million appropriation. Now, a little bit about that effort ongoing. We started, I want to say this, I think the truth is we about put the mayor to work as a full-time advocate on these efforts. And so it doesn't happen with just one meeting. It doesn't happen overnight. It's an ongoing process. So I think even starting the budget is a year-round sport, okay? So we're already starting to work on the budget for 25. So we started, I think last fall, almost a year ago, the Speaker of the House was in Myrtle Beach for some meetings. I think the mayor and a group kind of hosted him on a walkthrough of what we're trying to do with downtown revitalization. That continued on before the January session. I think, Mayor, you probably met with virtually every member of the Horry delegation to make sure we had a unified voice coming from the large Horry delegation. That was successful, and that's important to do because this is a big county and a big delegation, and we want those numbers to work for us. Continuing on, I think we met, Mayor, we met with the governor and the governor's chief of staff about what we were trying to do on downtown revitalization. As evidence of that, in the governor's executive budget he submitted to the General Assembly, the Myrtle Beach money was the only downtown municipal project standalone line item funding he recommended anywhere in his executive budget heading into this year. So while the governor doesn't write the budget he recommends, that's a nice acknowledgement that the chief executive heard all the pitches and then said the Myrtle Beach thing is a priority. So we'll take it. I think we met throughout the course of the session, just ongoing. We met with senior staff, members of Ways and Means. Again, it's a leadership on Ways and Means from Greenville, Speaker of the House. It's an ongoing task to make sure that Myrtle Beach gets its share, and that we make our case, and that we advocate for the critical projects that are going on here around downtown revitalization, and couldn't have done it without the mayor's constant effort. So thank you. As lobbyists, our job is to understand the timing, understand the process, understand kind of the key things we need to do, and the key meetings we need to set up. But the truth is that leadership in the legislature, they want to hear from the mayor. They want to hear from the elected leadership of the city, not just us as consultants. So I think a successful effort, but by no means are we done. So for this year's funding, one detail that's worth pointing out, just so there's no confusion, there's $10 million total. There's two different line items. There's one line item in the PRT budget known as a pass-through for $5 million downtown revitalization. There's a separate line in the Department of Commerce budget that says Myrtle Beach downtown revitalization and technology hub. Same project, just in two different agency budgets. It's really not just a distinction, and sometimes people see one and think that was the only one, or some kind of confusion. But I think we've discussed that with Fox. Both line items go to the same project, so I think that'll be fine. So now, any questions on the budget, or kind of where that stands, or kind of how we got to that point? Okay.
Tony, I have one question. At the Municipal Association this last week, in the legislative update session, they were talking about budget requests really need to be turned in September, October, not to wait until session is back in January. So when do we need to sit down with you and Lee and talk about what our request is going to be?
Well, certainly soon. I mean, as we talked about, the budget is a year-round exercise. Even though the fiscal year started July 1, and you just read the governor's vetoes were issued a few weeks ago from the budget we're talking about now, state agencies have to submit their budget to the Executive Budget Office, their first request, sometime in mid-August. The governor will start doing interviews with state agencies in September. He'll submit his budget to the General Assembly around New Year's, but as we say, it is a front-loaded process, so laying the groundwork for what we're going to ask for and what our priorities are. I mean, we're going to need to start those discussions before the end of the summer and be ready.
Okay.
So, for sure.
Thank you.
Even though the final decisions aren't made till sometime later, it's all about laying the right groundwork. So, and I think that certainly paid some dividends this year. So, all right. So, let's touch base on some standalone legislation that I think may be of interest. So some of these bills are things that we've been following or worked on, or are issues that members of council have asked us about in previous meetings, that there's some connection to things that are occurring in Myrtle Beach that we want to be aware of. So this first one is recovery houses, 445, otherwise known, I think, recovery houses, sober houses, a lot of that in Horry County, a lot of that in South Carolina, right? And so heretofore, there's been no standards, no regulation, no licensing. So this legislation, again, voluntary but a step in the right direction, sets up a process where DAODIS will have a credentialing organization that will certify some kind of standards, voluntary standards, that one of these recovery homes can I guess, can submit their credentials that they've got the proper program in place. They're drug free. They're doing all the things that a quality provider should be doing, right? So that bill got signed in March, and I think the process. Thank DeOtis, the state agency that governs alcohol and drug abuse services, has 6 months to kind of put this together and publish a list. So, voluntarily we'll see which recovery houses I think choose to comply with that. So probably we can talk to DeOtis and maybe more discussion on that. So, maybe not a lot of teeth in that bill. It's voluntary, but it's something, right? Where heretofore there's been essentially nothing. So, abandoned building tax credit. I know that there's tax credits, abandoned building credits being utilized in some of the redevelopment efforts occurring downtown. This state legislation for a state tax credit to redevelop abandoned buildings that have been abandoned for 5 years or more was set to expire in 25. So legislature passed a 10-year extension and increased the cap per project from $500,000 to $700,000. So that's certainly for redevelopment projects that are utilizing those credits that you're familiar with is certainly a positive thing, because that was going to clock out. And those are utilized statewide. Recreational trail easement income tax credit. This was something that a member out of Spartanburg pursued to support a trail project in Spartanburg. I don't know, Fox, and whether this will apply to any of the trail that's going to be developed between Conway and Myrtle Beach. This is for private landowners that provide an easement for property to be used in a recreational trail, state tax credit. So anyway, I know there's activity going on in that area, but I don't know that this will apply there. But worth noting. Constitutional carry. This is something that Chief Prock, I think, was concerned about, and I think we essentially raised concerns and opposed this. It passed anyway. So we have, I think you probably all read about this, but so we have open carry essentially in effect. So we'll see how that goes. Income tax credits. This is an economic development bill that one thing that allows Department of Commerce in recruiting corporate headquarters, new tax credits, expanded tax credits for corporate headquarters, and flexibility for remote workers. So for like tech businesses who have workers that may work here 2 or 3, 4 days a week, they pay taxes here but may reside elsewhere. Commerce can still award job development credits for remote workers. So this is an effort to try to make South Carolina more competitive for technology companies, because since COVID, the reality of it is in tech space, remote work is part of the landscape. So that could be possibly something that Commerce could utilize down the road for recruitment in something related to Horry County or Myrtle Beach. Judicial merit selection reform passed. Anti-Semitism bill 4042. This bill just sponsored by Beth Bernstein in Columbia. This is not the hate crime bill, but this defines what is anti-Semitism in the code and refers back to an international definition adopted in 2016. So kind of aligns us with anti-Semitism definitions for purposes of violating a law that are used around the country and around the world. So that was certainly a positive thing. The governor signed that bill. Hate crime bill did not pass. City of Myrtle Beach, flip to this next page. The City of Myrtle Beach is, hold on one second, messed up. Hate crime bill's on there somewhere. City of Myrtle Beach is on record supporting hate crime legislation. The mayor is. We submitted letters. I don't know which list I'm on now, sorry. Did not pass the House twice, has not passed the Senate. So when we look at issues that certainly are going to come back up for the 25 session beyond just the budget, I think you're going to hear a lot about hate crime legislation again. I don't know that it'll pass, but it will be a discussion. Another big one that we've talked about that did not pass is legislation around short-term rentals. I think you probably heard some discussion about that at the Municipal Association meeting. There's been multiple bills introduced in House 3M committee. We'll see where that goes. More cities are adopting ordinances around short-term rentals and regulations. So there's been a referendum in Isle of Palms about it. So I know this is a big issue in Myrtle Beach. So we will certainly need to be talking to our legislators about how legislation around short-term rentals could undercut home rule and affect quality of life here in Myrtle Beach. So this is something we're going to certainly need to be talking to our local members about this. And a number of them have been supporting, are aware of these concerns and have been on track of that. So, but that's got to continue, because there's something. I do think there's a pretty good chance something's going to pass, because there's been a lot of talk about it. I just don't know what something is. So, but it's certainly, the issue is not going away. Seems to be, there's somewhat of a, I don't know what you heard at MASC, but somewhat of a consensus around the collection of the accommodations tax, right? I think hotels, rental agencies, everybody agrees that the Airbnbs and those outfits ought to be collecting and remitting the same tax that rental properties do, or hotels, right? I don't think, that doesn't seem to be, as much in dispute as some of the other areas relative to what a city can or can't do and people's right to rent their homes. So anyway, more to go on that. Any other questions? I think that's, as we head into 25, I really do think the short-term rental is going to be a big one. We'll hear a lot about. Some of the other beach restoration, we've had a bill in for 2 years now to provide a recurring revenue stream for beach renourishment funds. When the state has funded beach renourishment, it has been some non-recurring appropriations. So Senator Campson from Isle of Palms has had a bill in to use some of the state accommodations tax to fund beach renourishment on an ongoing basis. It didn't pass. I think the finance chairman is just not, maybe, and some of the finance committee members are not sold on beach renourishment. So more to do there. PRT did ask for it in their budget, and it didn't get funded. So I think that if we're going to get additional funding there, Myrtle Beach, Horry County, for beach renourishment, we're going to have to push, because there's just not a statewide consensus that that's a priority compared to some of the other things in the budget. So happy to take any questions. I think that covers most of the, I don't know about the Yankee tax coming back. I think everybody read about that, right?
Any questions? You want to tell us a little bit about the caucus meeting here in August?
Good opportunity. The House Republican caucus, that is certainly the majority in the state House of Representatives, about a 2-to-1 majority on the Republican side. They do an annual retreat, a political gathering, mostly social and fun. That's going to be in Myrtle Beach. I guess August 22nd, 23rd. Good opportunity for networking for us, and a good opportunity for lawmakers from across the state to kind of see what's going on in Myrtle Beach and firsthand experience the exciting things occurring here. So it's a 2-day event. Last year it was in Greenville, so they've had it in Myrtle Beach before, but it's been a few years. So I think that's a great opportunity. I think the Chamber is sponsoring a reception on that Thursday night, so should be a big turnout. I mean, legislators from across the state and business interest, all attend. So several hundred folks. So it's a good meeting, good opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks for all of your help, you and Lee, this last session, and we consider this a big win.
Yes, and I guess also worth pointing out, our local legislators certainly backed us up this year pretty strong. We had a good team effort. Senator Rankin, Case Britton locally here, Heather Crawford, who's our member on Ways and Means. Really, the whole county delegation, I think, in some measure, was supportive of what we're trying to do downtown. So that's significant. I mean, they've got certainly concerns in their own backyards, big county, but a good unified team effort. So,
thank you, Tony. Okay, now we will welcome Jason Green to come give us the Myrtle Beach Downtown Alliance quarterly update.
Good morning, Mayor Bethune, members of council. Thanks for allowing me to come back and speak again about the Downtown Alliance. This is our quarterly update for the last quarter, so I'll get right into that. So talk about the Clean and Safe program that we have, some of the events and programs that we do have, as well as public input and some of the branding and wayfinding pieces that we've been working on over the last few months. For Clean and Safe, we've mentioned before that we're heavy on data collection, trying to understand kind of what the data means and kind of sifting through that. So we're currently collecting last fiscal year's data. We'll be doing a comparative analysis to the prior year, which we already have. But using that data to really kind of analyze what's happening in the downtown as we analyze foot traffic and what that means with the other things that are happening in downtown as well. Our short-term strategies for clean and safe, we finished up our informational meetings with New Directions in April of this last year. I think we learned a great deal about the complexity of the homeless situation in Myrtle Beach. And really trying to figure out a way that we can be supportive, but also as within the context of the clean and safe portion of our mission that we have. And we've also started working on the west side of Kings Highway with the Gold Cap Ambassadors. They're ramping up their staff now, so they're doing about 30 hours a week right now on the west side, and that will eventually ramp up to 80 hours a week, hopefully within the month, as we continue into the month of August. Long-term strategies, we are working with the coordinated effort now. Started attending, I'll be presenting in August with Chief Proc and the coordinated effort to talk about the Downtown Alliance and our Clean and Safe program. As far as events and programs are concerned, our Nights at Nance series starts in September on September 12th. We have 4 concerts planned. Contracts will be finished up this month. And it will go from September 12th through Thursday, October 24th, with our Halloween concert being on October 24th this year. First Friday Art Walks, the next 3 we have, August 2nd, September 6th, and October 4th. We are changing it up a bit. Starting in August, we will be publishing a schedule of events that are occurring in downtown, 9th and Nance being one area, 8th Avenue North, as well as Broadway Street, to give folks an option of what's happening with Nights at Nance and doing targeted marketing, geo-fencing in terms of driving advertisements to have folks check out the calendar as we start to do that as part of our marketing strategy for the upcoming year to drive more traffic on the First Friday Art Walks. And then Discover Downtown Dining was a great success in the spring. We will be having 3, maybe 4 events this upcoming year. The first one being on October 1st. We'll be looking at Kings Highway first, and then Nights at Nance, the Nance Plaza, 9th Avenue, Main Street area sometime later in the fall. In the winter, we will likely be looking at Ocean Boulevard and then back on Broadway, probably in the spring again. As far as community input meetings, we had some great success from the community input meetings in the spring, taking concepts that we presented to the community. Got some great feedback on that. Been working on the branding and wayfinding this summer. We'll be going back to the community this fall to look at some of the signage and some of the architectural standards that we're putting together. But this is the schedule of events that we have for the 5 formal meetings that we'll be having. But we will still engage with some of the stakeholders as well and asking their opinion as well to really have a full depth and breadth of what the community thinks of the effort. We are also working with the Oceanfront Merchants in a collaborative and co-marketing effort, but also starting to lay the groundwork for the West of Kings collaboration on marketing as well. And that just started within the last week, and we'll be formalizing that sometime in the month of August and getting that started. As far as business outreach, this is something that you'd asked me to present at the last meeting. So this doesn't represent individual businesses or individual staff members, but the collective. Sometimes we meet with 4 or 5 of the same people in this over the quarter, but we did meet with 289 business owners and staff in the last quarter and 72 residents. We're around 600 year to date that we've met with in terms of businesses. So we're getting the word out there. The latest word that we're starting to put out, we'll be putting it out recently, is the road changes on Oak Street. We developed a map working with Chris Miller, Brian Tucker, and Devin Parks. We'll be starting to promulgate that map out to some of the business owners so they're aware of what's happening. We just took a Gantt chart and made a map out of it so that folks have a visual representation of what's happening. As far as the design guidelines, we've been working on this concept to design lately. Internally, we've been handling the process on the wayfinding side, but it is a collective effort of many organizations and many departments within the city as well as committees. But we are right here in the middle here on this timeline that we've been working on. We are still on schedule for a September 6th internal deadline for all of the first iterations of everything that we will be presenting to the community. And our final deliverable to the city will be on March 31st of next year. But as far as the branding and wayfinding, on our community input meetings, we had a total of 8 meetings. What we learned from that, we put out several color palettes, several font styles, and several icons out to the community at large. We found that there were some strong opinions about some and some strong opinions against others. So we took the strongest opinions that people were for. This represents those colors, fonts, and iconography. We've actually boiled down the colors into 6 colors out of the collective group, and those are the 6 that we're working on through this first iteration as far as coming up with a color palette for the brand of downtown. The wayfinding signage, we also looked at signage. These are the highest scored sign styles that came out of the community input meetings. We had about 40 or 50 different sign styles. These are the top rated. We're using that as inspiration for creating some wayfinding signage for downtown as well. We've kind of systematically broken these signage into 3 categories: directional, informational, as well as points of interest. So I'll give you a smattering of kind of what we're working on. This is what we presented to Community Appearance Board last week, just to kind of get their opinion, keep them in the loop as to what's happening. This is a black and white version of a directional signage that we have put together. What we've learned through the iterations we've gone through so far is that the groups, the 30 or so folks that are involved in the process, have said simple, clean lines, simple shapes, and this is the 4th iteration of the iteration we've been going through so far. Again, no public input right now, just really going through it to kind of get something as simple as possible. Here's some colors from the color palette. This is with district only in 3 colors of the 6 colors we've chosen so far. We will likely do other iterations with other colors as we get to the public. We're just going to be discussing that over the next few meetings we have. Here's with district only. Here's one with sub-districts included, and then a different placement with sub-districts as well, just to kind of give an idea of what we might be able to do. Arts and Innovation District is an important part of this as we look at downtown as a collective. Arts and Innovation District, Withers Swash Park, other areas could be sub-districts within the downtown. As far as informational signage, the inspiration we took was from the kiosks on the boardwalk right now, trying to look at the shape and the style of it and incorporating some of that into not only the current non-technical kiosk, but if we do advance to more digital type kiosks, we want to make sure we have a size that's appropriate to be able to house the electronics that could be in that as well. And then we also looked at bike routes and some other informational signs that we might have in different areas as well. For points of interest, we just use Withers Swash neighborhood as an example, looking at the monument signs that currently exist within the city as inspiration for that, and came up with a single version at this point, but we will likely have other versions as we continue to go along through the process. Our hopes is to have about 2 or 3 versions that we can take to the community in the fall with 2 or 3 different color styles so that we can ask the community for input on that as we move into the fall. Questions?
Any questions from council? Jason, I know we have a board meeting this week.
That's right.
Could we, in the meeting, and maybe you've already prepared this, get a list of the businesses that have actually been contacted?
Sure, can do that.
And on your color palette, did you all keep the color palette with what's already been decided on for the downtown, for the Arts and Innovation District?
We did. In fact, we married that with the color palettes to make sure we're using those exact same colors. They were so similar that it was just easy to use the Arts and Innovation District colors.
Okay, thank you. No other questions?
Oh, but
Y'all are
discover
easy
downtown dining on my calendar already.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Okay, it is 9:27, and we do have time, I think, to get a couple of executive session items done in our workshop. Will, which ones do you think we have time for?
The first 3 or 5.
Okay, so we have, may I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the acquisition of property in the Arts and Innovation District? Also to discuss negotiations concerning proposed contractual arrangements regarding the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, and to discuss contractual negotiation relating to lease of city-owned property in the Arts and Innovation District. We will invite Fox Simons, Will Bryan, Brian Tucker, Josh Bruger, Michelle Schumpert, Marla Bell, Meredith Denarian, Amy Newshafer.
So moved. Second.
Motion from Dr. Connor, second from Ms. Hatley. Any discussion from council? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And we will be back.